My wife mocked me with her affair partner. In my own home, until my hidden cameras captured everything, and the police took her away in handcuffs. A few days ago, my kids stumbled upon a small bunny and brought it home, pleading with us to let them keep it. But we couldn't. It was a wild rabbit, and we already have multiple pets. The bunny was old enough to survive on its own, so I gently explained to my children that it needed to go back to its natural home with its family. They were upset but agreed to return it. Unfortunately, I was tied up with work and couldn't go with them, so my wife took over. I told her to release the bunny in the thick thorn bushes at the edge of our property. It's the safest place around here. We live in a rural area full of predators. I went back to work, but a short while later, my kids came bursting into the house in tears, followed by my wife, who was trying to calm them down and reassure them that things weren't as terrible as they seemed. When I asked what happened, my oldest told me that their mom made them let the bunny go in the middle of the yard, and a hawk swooped down and snatched it. They even described the bunny's terrified screams. I was horrified, then furious. I asked my wife why she didn't follow the instructions I gave. She brushed it off, saying it was just a bunny and that the kids would get over it. But I disagreed completely. I'd warned her about the predators around here, and now our children had witnessed something traumatic, a helpless animal being taken right in front of them. Since then, both kids have shut themselves in their rooms and refused to talk to her. When she tries, they call her the bunny killer. I've tried to play peacemaker, but my children are still upset, and honestly, so am I. My wife is angry with me now too, saying that, as her husband, I should have stood by her, that we're supposed to support each other. But we ended up arguing because I reminded her of all the times she didn't support me. She started crying and locked herself in our bedroom. Now, I'm wondering if I handled everything wrong. A friend suggested I post here to get some perspective. Yes, I understand hawks have to eat too, and they're everywhere around here. But my kids are 4 and 5 years old. I didn't want them to witness something that brutal. I grew up in the country, my wife in the city. Whenever I came across a wild animal as a kid, we always released it somewhere it had a real chance of making it. I never once raised my voice at my wife. Nowhere in this story did I say I yelled at her. I did scold her, yes, but I never shouted, even during the argument. We kept our voices low so the kids wouldn't hear. I also couldn't join them to release the bunny because I work from home half the week and need to stay by the phone for calls unless I'm on my lunch break. And for the record, I've never once called my wife the nickname the kids came up with. I've tried to get them to stop. It's hurtful and degrading, and I won't stoop to that level. Sorry for all the updates, but I need to clarify more. My children were never outside unsupervised. My wife is a stay-at-home mom and was with them when they found the bunny. They ran straight to the house with it, and that's when I explained it needed to be set free. I can't believe I have to say this, but no, this isn't copied from some online video. I haven't seen the video people keep mentioning, though I'm sure it exists. But hawks swooping in and taking small animals isn't rare. It happens all the time. Why wouldn't it happen to someone else too, even if their experience ended up on video? For reference, our property is nearly all open, grassy land, except for the house and a single tree. We have 4 acres, and the grass was mowed just this past Sunday, so it was short. That poor bunny might as well have had a bullseye on its back. Hawks are constantly circling the area. I've dealt with them since I was a kid, guarding baby chicks with my old pellet gun. Little bunnies are practically their favorite prey. To make sure the bunny had a chance to escape, I specifically told my wife to release it in the bushes. In the bushes. I am absolutely fed up with people repeating, "Hawks gotta eat too," or "a circle of life," or accusing me of interfering with nature. When I was a kid, it was my job to protect animals from hawks on my grandparents' farm. Farmers have every right to defend their animals from predators. We weren't about to let hawks swoop in and snatch baby chicks whenever they wanted, which they would have done daily. Yes, I stood out there with a pellet gun, but it was mostly for scaring the hawks away. I never intentionally brought one down. Sure, I hit a few, but barely. It only ever made them turn back and fly off. I haven't shot at a hawk in over 25 years. I never took pleasure in hurting any living creature. My grandpa was the one who used real guns, taking down hawks and coyotes to protect our livestock. I've known firsthand for decades how easily hawks go after small animals. They're not starving. Our area is full of food for them. But like most predators, they're opportunists. That's exactly why I asked for the bunny to be released in the thick bushes. But, as I've already explained in a previous update, I couldn't leave my desk that day, something a lot of people still seem to ignore or didn't bother reading. Not sure if this is the right place to post anymore, but I'm not sure where else to go. For those who remember me, I'm the guy whose wife made our kids release a wild bunny in the middle of our yard after I'd told her to have them release it in the bushes where it would be safer. A hawk took the bunny right in front of our kids, who were only 4 and 5 at the time. They were devastated and blamed their mother. They even started calling her the Bunny Slaughter. And now, after everything else that's happened, that nickname feels sadly fitting. Others started using it too after something much worse came to light, her affair. That whole bunny ordeal feels like ancient history now compared to what I'm about to share. I'm speaking now as a free man. Our divorce was finalized just a couple months ago. This story is going to get long and complicated, so buckle up. A P stands for affair partner. Sorry I didn't clarify that sooner. I did show my wife my original Reddit post, and she was furious. It sparked a nasty fight, followed by another week of complete silence from her. I still tried to get our kids to treat her with respect after the bunny thing, even giving them small punishments like timeouts and groundings when they used that awful nickname. But the name just kept coming back whenever they got upset with her. Eventually, she let go of her silent treatment. After a couple of weeks, she admitted that she should have listened to me about the bunny and released it in the bushes like I suggested. She said she reacted defensively at the time because she didn't want to admit she was wrong. I accepted her apology and apologized myself for making the post. I also asked if she would consider marriage counseling. She refused, acted like there was nothing wrong between us. I didn't push it because, outwardly, things seemed to be improving. But then, a few weeks later, my oldest daughter came to me and said she needed to tell me something. She looked nervous and upset, and I could tell this wasn't just about the bunny. She said that there was another reason she was still so angry at her mother, but she had been scared to tell me. I reassured her, told her she could say anything, and she finally opened up. What she told me shattered everything in an instant. For months, apparently, my wife had been inviting a man over on certain Saturdays when I was at work. She told the kids he was her special friend. She got them to keep quiet about it through little bribes and promises. But my daughter eventually realized something was really wrong and had been working up the courage to tell me. People don't give kids enough credit. They know when something's off. They notice far more than adults think. I'd already seen changes in my wife's behavior. She'd been snapping more often, especially at the kids. When I showed her my first Reddit post, she exploded over every little thing she could bring up. She insulted how I looked, how I acted, even took jabs at my family and my past. She dragged up the fact that I used to smoke, something I quit more than 10 years ago. Then she locked me out of our bedroom and cried so loudly it echoed through the whole house. So when my daughter told me the truth, everything suddenly made sense. Putting the pieces together, it became painfully clear she was cheating. Her behavior had been eerily similar to the mood swings she experienced during both of her pregnancies, only worse this time. Based on what I read online and what friends, even a counselor, told me, the signs all pointed to hormonal changes and emotional projection due to her infidelity. I'm no expert in psychology, but it all started to add up. I desperately wanted to believe it was just a misunderstanding. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling, so I ordered a few hidden cameras and had them delivered to my workplace to keep everything secret from home. When my wife went out for a girls' night, I used the opportunity to set them up. It was simple. Within hours, I had everything synced to our Wi-Fi and I could monitor the entire house from both my laptop and work computer. At first, I felt guilty. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, and if I was wrong, I'd just take them down, and no one would ever know. But I wasn't wrong, not even close. I had more than enough evidence within the first week. The man my wife was seeing, her affair partner, was a former coworker. I remembered him clearly. They were always a little too close whenever I saw them at work events back then. Years ago, when she got pregnant with our first child, we had mutually decided she'd quit her job to become a full-time mom. She stayed in touch with her former coworkers, calling them her best friends. But not anymore. What I'm about to share has completely destroyed her reputation. This affair partner is around 10 years younger than her. My wife had mentored him at her old job and even helped train him to take over her role when she left. They stayed in contact, clearly too close. She and I are both in our 40s, though you wouldn't guess her age just by looking at her. She's striking, often mistaken for someone in her 20s, and I guess she used that to her advantage. Eventually, I confided in my sister and showed her the footage from the hidden cameras. She admitted she had her own suspicions for a while. She'd seen my wife at a local bar acting a little too familiar with a man who wasn't me. No kissing, but a lot of touching on the shoulder and lower back. Since nothing outright happened, she never mentioned it until now. I ended up ordering a GPS tracker next. Once it was working, I hid it in my wife's trunk. My sister and her husband offered to help, and they tracked her on her next girls' night. She drove nearly 20 miles farther than where she normally went, and ended up meeting the affair partner. From their car, they watched her and the guy talk, and at one point, he started rubbing her stomach. They recorded everything. As soon as I saw the video, I knew she had to be pregnant, and it wasn't mine. The moodiness at home, the secrecy, the belly rub, it all clicked. I completely broke down. My sister and her husband had to calm me down. I nearly turned to alcohol to numb the pain, but thankfully, my sister convinced me that was the worst thing I could do. Later, I told my wife I had to go on a business trip and took a leave from work. She was thrilled and didn't do much to hide how happy she was that I'd be gone. It was chilling. Who was this woman? This wasn't the person I married nearly 20 years ago. Was this some cruel imposter in her place? A stranger who just looked like my wife? Eventually, I realized trying to make sense of it all wouldn't help. The only thing I could do was face reality. Face reality. With the cameras in place, I asked my sister and brother-in-law to take the kids for a few days. They love visiting their aunt and uncle in the city, so it was an easy cover. That gave my wife exactly what she wanted: an empty house and a free weekend. Just a few hours after I left, she called him, and he showed up that evening. I won't go into graphic details about what they did in the house. You can imagine it yourselves. But what made it worse was the way they laughed at me, like I was some clueless fool. They sat around mocking me, talking about how easily they kept me in the dark. In one recording between her and the other man, they even discussed the baby, what to do before her belly started to show. By then, she was already over 3 months along, and it was impossible to pass the child off as mine. The affair partner was a different race, so it would have been obvious from birth that I wasn't the father. Still, my wife brushed off his concerns and told him they had time to figure it out. Then, with zero shame, she admitted this wasn't even her first affair. She had slept with another man back when she was 29. She told him she was tired of pretending to be the good housewife, sick of being around someone boring like me who made her feel old, and if it weren't for my financial stability, she'd have left me long ago. When the affair partner asked what her plan was for our children, her response floored me. He can have them. She didn't even want to be around them anymore because she thought they liked me better. Besides, she was getting her do-over baby anyway. I nearly smashed the laptop in my motel room out of pure rage. Instead, I managed to keep my composure, drank a few beers, got dinner at a nearby diner, and watched a movie to distract myself. Later that night, I lay in bed for hours just thinking, replaying everything. I truly thought I knew her. I loved her with everything I had. I would have done anything for her. But sometimes people are just cruel, and you never see who they really are until they reveal it themselves. That night, I made up my mind. I was going to destroy her in the divorce. I'm usually calm and kind, but when I'm pushed too far, I become the kind of nightmare no one wants to deal with. The very next day, I walked into a law firm and asked to see their most ruthless divorce attorney. I live in an at-fault state, and with hard video evidence of her cheating, my wife didn't stand a chance. The lawyer was cautious at first, unsure why I wanted to proceed so quickly, until I explained everything and showed him some of the footage. He grinned like a shark. We shook hands, and he told me this was exactly the kind of case he loved digging into. We filed immediately. A few weeks later, on a day I was working from home and the kids were at school, our eldest in kindergarten, youngest in preschool, the local sheriff personally handed her the divorce papers. The cameras caught it all. She looked pale and shaken as she opened the envelope. Then she completely lost it. She ran straight into my home office, screaming and demanding answers. I didn't raise my voice, didn't even flinch. I was already emotionally detached. She wanted to argue, but I calmly told her my decision was final, and that I wanted her out of the house. I reminded her that I was the only one who ever contributed to the mortgage. She shouted that I couldn't do this to her, then had the audacity to threaten me. She said she'd accuse me of abuse in court and try to get me fired. I told her to go ahead and make up whatever lie she wanted. It wouldn't save her. I knew what she was planning. She was already pregnant with another man's child. At that, her eyes widened. "How much do you know?" she asked. "Enough," I said. And once more, I told her to leave. She refused, saying the house was just as much hers as it was mine. Then she stormed into the bedroom and locked the door. The bedroom cameras showed her breaking down in fake hysterics, dialing the police. She was pretending to panic, but behind it all there was a grin, a massive, smug smile. It was sickening. She was a talented liar. Anyone hearing her on the phone would have believed she was in real danger. When the police arrived, I had the front door open and welcomed them in. They came in ready for a serious situation, but the house was spotless. There were no signs of any disturbance. My wife came running out of the bedroom sobbing and grabbed onto one of the officers, claiming I was a lunatic. I calmly asked one of the officers if I could show them some evidence. He agreed, which startled her. She hadn't realized I was recording everything. After showing him the footage, she said a few things and left without another word. From the cameras on my laptop, I showed the officers footage of my wife explicitly saying she'd make up lies to destroy my life. Then I played the sequence of clips, her storming out of my office, running into our bedroom, and calling the police while pretending to be in a panic. I had everything recorded, and from multiple angles. Despite her accusations that I had hit her, there were no marks on her, and every camera in the house painted a completely different story. I handed the police a thumb drive containing all the footage, including the fake 911 call. Still, even with all this stacked against her, she doubled down and insisted I was abusive. She tried claiming the recordings were illegal and couldn't be used, but I reminded the officers that these were legal security cameras installed inside my own home, not surveillance done in public. She turned to the police and demanded they do something. So they did. They arrested her. They cuffed her right there in our home, and as they did, she broke down, sobbing like a child. I just shook my head. This was the woman I once loved, the same woman I'd trusted and built a life with. I truly believed she was kind, smart, and compassionate. I couldn't have been more wrong. As they escorted her out, she screamed that they couldn't do this to her, but she didn't physically resist. She must have realized that fighting it would only lead to additional charges. After that, I immediately shut down every credit card in my name and cut off access to our joint account. From that point forward, she had to rely entirely on her own funds to bail herself out. She wasn't broke. She'd worked for years and saved plenty while I covered the entire mortgage alone. She returned the next day to pick up her car. I'd already packed several suitcases with her clothes and personal items, left the keys on the driver's seat, and locked the house. She never set foot back inside. The day after she bailed herself out, her parents came to speak with me. At first, they only knew the version of events she'd fed them, the same lies she told the police. Her father looked like he was ready to come after me, strong and imposing despite his age. But when I calmly asked him if he knew anything about his daughter's affair or pregnancy, he was visibly stunned. That hesitation gave me the chance I needed. I pulled out the laptop and showed them the footage. They watched in silence, and by the end they looked devastated. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Couldn't believe this woman was their daughter. They apologized to me right then and there and promised they'd stay in touch to support the kids. Then, with the laptop still open in front of them, they called my wife on speakerphone and confronted her directly. She tried to deny it. She tried to double down. But her mother and father interrupted her and told her they had seen everything. They told her she was no longer welcome in their home, and that she wasn't the daughter they raised. Her father called her selfish and heartless for cheating, trying to frame her own husband, and abandoning her children. They disowned her on that call. She tried to respond, but they hung up before she could say another word. She kept calling back, but they ignored every attempt. And when they got home later, not only had she left, she'd destroyed several things around their house out of spite. My mother-in-law cried when she told me what had happened. Even now, I still consider them my in-laws. They visit from time to see their grandchildren. But as for my ex-wife, to all of us, she's as good as dead. She returned one final time to collect the rest of her belongings, bringing her affair partner with her. He didn't even step inside the house. She didn't say a single word to me while packing the rest of her things. She knew she was surrounded by cameras and any misstep would only hurt her more. I wasn't alone either. My sister and brother-in-law came by to keep watch, just in case. My brother-in-law even kept an eye on her affair partner from the window. While she was packing, our kids got home, and she made no effort to speak to them. Not even when our youngest cried for her. She ignored them completely. Before leaving, she took a few of our wedding photos off the wall and threw them on the floor, smashing the frames. She looked right at me as she did it, clearly hoping for a reaction. But I stayed quiet. When she got no satisfaction from me, she grabbed the last of her things and left without another word. He was a shark in a suit, cold, calculated, and relentless, and I'm grateful every single day that he was on my side. After she took her bags and walked out for good, I called my elderly mother to come stay with me. I couldn't manage the kids alone, not with my demanding job, limited PTO, and almost no daycare options. While trying to hold things together, I also ordered DNA tests for my children. I never doubted they were mine, but enough people insisted I needed to be sure. Thankfully, both kids are indeed mine. I also got tested for STIs, and I'm clean. One less thing to worry about. About a week later, my wife showed up at the door again. This time, she offered to agree to a clean divorce, meaning she'd split everything with me if I did the same. I told her no, flat out. She didn't take that well. There was some back and forth, and she eventually admitted she'd looked into the divorce laws here and realized the state wasn't on her side. We met, got engaged, married, and built our lives in this state. There was no escaping accountability. She tried to play nice, hoping I'd settle, but I reminded her how she betrayed not just me, but our children, her parents, and everyone else who ever cared about her. Then I slammed the door in her face. She left quietly. I didn't see her again until we stood in court months later. By then, she was visibly pregnant, and she'd finally hired a lawyer. Her affair partner didn't even bother showing up. I fully expected her to lie to the judge, and she tried once or twice, but the amount of video evidence I brought in shut those lies down immediately. So, instead of lying, she tried to drag out the proceedings, refusing to cooperate and demanding everything under the sun. Most of my savings, various personal possessions, and for me to buy out her share of the house, even though she never paid a dime into it. I, on the other hand, was pushing for full custody of our children and to have her name removed from the house deed. I had the receipts, video footage of her saying she didn't care about our kids and planned to make up lies to ruin me. She thought she could stall the case and wear me down, but the judge wasn't having it. This is an at-fault state. She committed adultery. She tried to frame me. That was like having a signed prenup against her. She didn't stand a chance. In the end, the judge ruled exactly how I'd hoped. She lost all custody rights and walked away with nothing beyond her personal belongings, a very modest financial settlement, and the car, which I had already transferred into her name just to be done with it. She never once tried to contact or speak to our kids throughout the entire divorce process. So, I got full custody. The house is entirely mine now. I'm free. My ex-wife kept spreading lies about me at first, but my sister made sure people knew the truth. Once mutual friends saw the proof of the affair and the lies, they dropped her completely. She and her affair partner eventually left town. I heard AP wasn't fired, but was transferred somewhere. I don't know where, and I don't care. They could both be freezing in Greenland for all I care. She should have given birth to her do-over baby by now. I hope it was worth it. I never thought I'd be posting something like this to Reddit. Not when it all started with a story about my wife releasing a bunny into the yard and a hawk snatching it. But so many of the comments I got back then, pointing out red flags in her behavior, made me realize I should have opened my eyes a long time ago. I guess I wore rose-colored glasses through our entire marriage. But it's over now. Thank you to anyone who made it this far. I know it was a lot, but this is my life. I got her name removed from the house deed because all the financial records showed that I was the sole contributor. She never made a single payment. On top of that, she was argumentative with the judge, and in an at-fault state, being caught cheating is devastating. It's the legal equivalent of showing up to court with a guilty sign taped to your forehead. And when I said I got the meanest lawyer in the firm, I wasn't kidding. That man was a beast. The lawyer's work was more than enough, in fact, and the police here don't take false accusations lightly. To clarify for those asking, the final payout my ex-wife walked away with from the divorce was $60,000 in cash, and the car I had bought for her a few years ago, a $50,000 vehicle fully paid off. I signed the title over without a second thought. That was it. That was her entire share of our life together. She was also initially offered partial custody of our children, but once the court reviewed the video footage where she plainly said she didn't care about them anymore and stated that I could have them, she didn't even bother fighting for it. She realized she had no leverage, couldn't manipulate her way out of the mess she created, and ultimately chose to relinquish all parental rights voluntarily. So now, the kids are fully with me. They're safe, loved, and stable, and they're better off without the toxicity she brought into our home. For anyone who doubts whether the police would arrest someone for filing a false report, especially one as serious as accusing their spouse of domestic abuse, let me assure you, they absolutely will. My ex had the audacity to lie to authorities with a smug, sociopathic grin on her face, trying to paint me as a violent man. But the truth was on my side, backed by time-stamped footage and recordings from multiple angles. That was more than enough for the police to act. Framing someone for abuse is not just immoral, it's criminal. And in this case, it cost her everything.